Off and running on a Thursday. What's up? What's happening? Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. And I even created for today. Today, very special day. It is the day that we find out who the Commanders are going to play football against. And we have on the YouTubes, Anthony, you don't even know this yet, but get ready. And I don't even know if you'll be able to see it because of the way we're wired up in here. But I got a schedule tracker. So if you want, today's a good day. Just gonna throw this up on the screen a lot, and we're gonna be able to tell you guys what we got in terms of the schedule leaks. We also have a live schedule tracker leaker situation going on the team980.com. So if you want to see all the reports on schedule leaks at all times, you can always just keep that up, keep refreshing it throughout the day at theteam980.com. We start with, of course, the schedule, which is out in, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the games that have currently leaked out. We got Week 1 versus Arizona, which Kevin Sheehan, who is the schedule master and is going to join us at 5 o'clock today, nailed that on his mock schedule earlier today. Chicago, a Thursday night football game, Week 5. Circle back to all these in a second. Giants, Week 7 at home. Week 11 at New York. Week 12 at Dallas for Thursday night, or not Thursday night football, for Thanksgiving football. And yes, Anthony, I did put a small turkey next to the Dallas game on the schedule tracker. I feel like you should know that. So that's just so you're aware. We do have a turkey on the schedule tracker on YouTube. And then Week 16, they're at the Jets. That's Christmas Eve. Week 18 versus Dallas. That is what we know as of right now. We will continue to update you as we learn more information throughout the show. However, for what we know right now, Anthony, I think the biggest thing is one of my pet peeves that we already know is going to happen. And that is the Commanders are doing a thing that should be banned by the NFL. Joe Rivera was on with us the other day, who used to help make the NFL schedule. And there's a zillion things they put into the rules of the schedule. You can do this. You're not allowed to do that. Stadium availability is obviously huge. And if a rock concert or pop concert or whatever on a certain day and the field's not going to be ready as reason to nix a game, I think that we should be able to take in consideration the fact that a team played a road football game on a Sunday and then has to travel again to Thursday. For instance, what the Commanders are going to have to do, facing the Giants in, Week 11, and then Week 12, they're at Dallas. That's a joke. I go ballistic about this every year. So, at NFL, listen to me, please. I know a little bit about the body and fitness and recovery and what's actually good for the human beings who play your sport. Don't make teams get on airplanes multiple times in 3 days and play 2 football games in 5. It's bad. Very, very bad. It sucks. Stop. Think they'll listen?
I think they got it.
No, they don't.
Nah.
Dum-Dum's been doing it for years. I just don't get it. It's a huge player safety issue, and it's a huge competitive disadvantage as well. And like, you know this from talking to Z and being around a couple players over the years and kind of seeing their schedules, right? You play on a Sunday on the road. And like, I used to the Commanders, when I was on the beat, I was flying commercial everywhere. When I covered the Cowboys the couple years that I worked out in Dallas, I wasn't a full-time beat reporter, but the way our radio station did it, we kind of alternated who went to road games and got sound and did the job. And the way the Cowboys do it, they actually travel they actually travel media on the plane. Now, for both journalistic and functional reasons, most of the print reporters didn't go. Like ESPN.com, Todd Archer's not flying on the plane, Dallas Morning News, both from hey, we can't do that, we're journalists, and also the fact that writers need to write after the game. But most of the TV and radio were like, yeah, we'll take you up on that, and you literally travel with the team. And so, you're kept separate. We're not on the bus with the players. We're on a different bus, but we're in the convoy, getting the police escort, the whole deal. And so, I know what it's like to literally travel with an NFL team. Now, again, to New York, it's not that bad, but getting on an airplane immediately after playing a football game is not good for your body, but teams do it because you want to try to get back as soon as possible. And realistically, you get back from New York, if that's a 1 o'clock game, you get back 7:30, 8:30 at night, and that's not horrendous. There are days that I didn't get back that late from FedEx because of traffic. But still, it's a flight. It's a compressed recovery schedule. Everything after an NFL game when you're a road team is jammed up. You're just trying to get on the plane as fast as possible versus at home, you kind of have your everything there and you're set and you're good. And so you immediately are going back to work Sunday night, especially for the coaches, quarterbacks. You're watching film. And then you got to be on the plane again on Wednesday. You get no practice where you might get a day or at least a better walkthrough in if you have that extra day that it's not a travel day. And just everything is jammed up. I think it should be against the rules of the NFL schedule to play back-to-back Sunday, Thursday road games. And I just don't think it should be that hard to avoid. And there's teams that wind up having to do it every year, and it's insanity. The only thing that's dumber is when it's Sunday night football, which has happened. Home or away. When I was working in Dallas, this happened. They had a Sunday night game into hosting Thanksgiving. And thank God they were hosting, but still, you don't get back till 3, 4 in the morning sometimes from a Sunday night football game. What are you doing? It just can't be that hard to avoid. And yet every year, here we are.
I think what's even more brutal is that these are, division foes. We're going up against division opponents. And I feel like, we've heard players say before, the divisional games are so much more physical. They're, more taxing on the body. They mean more. They matter more. So I think that's also what's so brutal about having back-to-back, away games, Sunday to Thursday type of thing.
Yeah, it's just, I don't get it at all. We'll continue to, obviously, as more of the schedule leaks, we will get it to you here on the Team 980. But right now, we know week 1, we know week 5, we know a bunch of the division games. We'll recap them again and react to some of the other games outside of my gigantic Sunday, Thursday complaint. Next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Logan and I dive in on Take Command, discussing what we want to see from the Commanders' schedule. Of course, we recorded this before we have the leaks that we have right now to the schedule. To recap those again, this is what we know as of right now. Week 1, Arizona. Week 5, Chicago. That's Thursday Night Football. Week 7 versus the Giants. Week 11 versus the Giants. Week 12 at Dallas. Week 16 at the Jets. Week 18 versus Dallas. I will editorialize here. I would pretty much guarantee then Week 17 is against Philly. I don't know whether that'll be at Philly or at home. My guess is probably at Philly, unless they're going to finish with back-to-back home games against divisional opponents. But because of the fact that they typically try to end with division opponents as often as possible, last year they had four of their last 5 games? Or was it 5 of their... No, I guess the Cleveland game was in there. It was 4 of their last 5. The Eagles are not on the schedule yet. You have both Giants games. You have both Dallas games. I'm guessing Week 17 is going to be against Philly, but that's completely a guess. I could also see then like an early season, Week 2, Week 3 game against Philly as well. Try to get one in early. Right now, the earliest one on the schedule is Week 7 versus New York. Week 1 versus Arizona is definitely, I think, a win for Washington. Again, it's Week 1, so you just never know with anything. And for the second straight year, you're going to face a team that has a brand new head coach. Last year it was Doug Peterson and Jacksonville. This year it's Jonathan Gannon and Arizona. I don't know that it matters too much when you face Arizona because, frankly, I think they're going to be pretty bad the entire year. But facing them early, being able to face a bad team, hopefully get out to a relatively easy 1-0 start, obviously that's going to be a massive game. Where it's your first, we'll talk about this later, but still think it's going to be the first of the non-Dan Snyder era, of the Josh Harris era. This sale is certainly hitting some road bumps, but I do think they are road bumps, not like road blocks that blow out your tires and total your car. I still have pretty high confidence it's going to get done, but it's just taking longer and is more complicated than we thought it would be. So Arizona, big celebration, bad football team. Colt will be starting, which does scare you a little bit. Big-time Colt McCoy revenge game possibility, which is hilarious considering the Sam Howell, Colt McCoy stuff of the last week. But generally speaking, like, very winnable game. Hopefully a good start to the season. And you definitely are not going to face Kyler Murray later in the year. And all things considered, you'd rather not face Kyler Murray. Still TBD if you have to deal with DeAndre Hopkins. Is he going to ask for a trade? That was kind of rumored all offseason. So far, he still hasn't been traded. Always could happen in training camp. Someone loses a receiver, etc. But that's an interesting one to start with for sure. Other games that we know of right now. Week 5 against Chicago, which immediately made me go, wait a second. Didn't we do this last year? It was close. It was week 6 last year, and that was one of the craziest days that I can remember. The show obviously was 3 to 6 then for us, and it wasn't until the 5 o'clock hour that we talked about the game for that Thursday night game in Chicago, because that was the day the ESPN story dropped. That was kind of the big bombshell day. This year, not happening in Chicago. It's at home. It's week 5 instead of week 6. But for the second straight year, you get Justin Fields and the Bears on a Thursday night. And frankly, I kind of hate that because it is a super unique challenge to face Fields and face what they do with him in the quarterback run game in Chicago. I would like a full week of practice if I'm Washington. Like that to me, anytime you're unique and you get someone on a short week, it's like a team that plays zone in the NCAA tournament. You rather have them the first game so you get a couple days to practice against it versus the second game where it's like, well, we had a walkthrough yesterday and now we just got to go play the game and hope that everything goes great. And that's kind of what the Bears are with how unique their rushing attack is and trying to prepare for Fields. Luckily, this team saw him last year, and they fully understand what he's capable of. That was a super bizarre game, and they got very lucky that the Bears only scored 7 points because they rushed for about 4,800 yards, it felt like, in the game. I think they actually rushed for like 260, and the Commanders somehow held them to 7, got a late turnover on special teams, and Carson Wentz, with a broken finger, is able to get them to a 12-7 victory. That was also the Ron Rivera, like, bleep everyone. I looked at the bleeping analytics game. So you get that rematch and anniversary. October Thursday Night Football, Bears Commanders, a tradition unlike any other. Then you got the Giants week 7. It's the Giants. We'll see. Again at New York week 11. And then, like I said, Thursday Thanksgiving at Dallas. I will say, as someone who's been to a lot of the Dallas Thanksgiving games, I know Russell hates this, and that's kind of become a bit so much that, like, JP had Russell on the show today over on The Fan talking about it. I get it. You want to be able to focus on your family and all that, and those of us that work in the industry, and even those of us even if you're a big fan, maybe you want to be able to casually watch football where you don't feel like you need to watch your team. Guess what? It's 2023, right? Like, sure, those of us that if I do pregame again this year, then we're going to have a pregame show, and that's going to mess with my ability to do stuff for Thanksgiving. Yeah, that sucks. Really, really not my favorite. But honestly, it's not that bad either, because if they play on Thanksgiving, and especially if it's like a 4 o'clock game, if I can catch a 7 o'clock flight out of town, or 8 o'clock flight out of town that night, if such a thing exists, I don't know, I haven't looked. I could be in South Carolina at my parents' place, in Ohio at my mother-in-law's place, that on Thanksgiving night, and we can have turkey the next day. And then guess what? I don't have to worry about coming back for Sunday, and so I get the whole freaking weekend. So take that, Chris Russell. How about that? How about them apples? I just freed up your whole weekend because the Commanders play on Thanksgiving. You think of that one? No? Okay. He's in his car right now listening, because I know he listens on his ride home. He wants to take out the car in front of him, pretending that it's me. He's so mad right now. But as someone who's done a lot of Thanksgiving games, because I used to work in Dallas, I actually kind of love it. And by the way, if you get to cover the game in person, it's really awesome. They do a fantastic job with the spread. You get a great made-for-you turkey dinner. You get to watch a great football game. And then you can do your family thing on Friday, while everyone else is killing each other in a shopping mall. So, yeah, count me in on team not mad about playing on Thanksgiving. Give me the entire weekend. Might go on a trip. I'm telling you right now, Anthony, if the Commanders' bye week is week 13, after the game at Dallas, CK is probably going to want me to do the show on Friday. I'm guessing he's going to want us to work on Black Friday, which is totally valid. It's the day after a game. After that Friday, you won't see me for a week.
I don't blame you, Craig.
My ass is going to Europe.
I don't blame you at all.
Like Friday night, I will be on an overnight red-eye flight to Europe if the Commanders' bye week is week 13.
If you have an extra ticket, just let me know so I can put in my time off now.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You and your girlfriend join me and my wife. We'll have a little couples trip to Europe.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Hope you like schnitzel. You know what schnitzel is, Anthony?
You told me this yesterday, and
you're forgetting.
Schnitzel. All right, give me until the end of the show to figure it out.
Okay, it probably shouldn't take you that long because you have the internet in front of you. There's this magical website. It's called Google.
Mm-hmm.
And figure it out.
Okay.
All right. Then we also got at the Jets on Christmas Eve. That one's annoying, but like it is what it is. Teams play on holidays. Not as big of a deal for me. Member of the tribe. I don't know when Hanukkah is this year. Not going to affect my life a ton. And then week 18 versus Dallas. And like for football reasons, Anthony, that one's super interesting because if Dallas has something to play for, if the Commanders have something to play for, like that game is like especially if they are fighting for a wild card spot, the two of them, That's your game. What is it? It used to be game 256. Whatever the last game of the season is now. That's it. That's the one. You're not doing better than that. I guess Giants Philly could, but I mean that has obviously potential. But it's also like happy anniversary Sam Howell, because he closed Week 18 versus Dallas and things went well, and now he's going to get a chance to do it again. So that'll be super interesting. The end of the Sam Howell year one. Does it start, or does it end how his career started with the win over Dallas in the final week of the regular season? So that's what we know right now. Versus Arizona Week 1, versus Chicago on Thursday Night Football Week 5, Giants Week 7, Week 11 at the Giants, at Dallas Week 12, Week 16 Christmas Eve at the Jets, Week 18 versus Dallas at home. When we get back, what else should you look for from a football perspective as the rest of these games continue to leak? Talked about it with Logan on Take Command, and we'll play it for you next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. and it is time for Take Command Thursday. Of course, the podcast I do with myself and Logan Paulson. The same Logan Paulson you can hang out with tonight, Old Ox Brewery in Ashburn. Logan will be there with Linnell and Denton talking about the NFL schedule release, simulcast on 106.7 The Fan and following us here on the Team 980. But we talked on, yesterday, about the schedule release. So a couple things wind up being a touch dated just due to the fact that this news is rapidly developing. But I still think the stuff that we talked about is potential for the schedule is interesting on all those fronts. Why I thought the Commanders should be on one of the primetime games to open the season. Why I thought they could be a prime candidate for an international game. That's all in here. But we really got into kind of the football stuff of the schedule. Who do you want to see early? Who do you want to see later in the season? And why? And here that is on a Take Command Thursday. Logan, I think last year when you look at...
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. What's up? What's happening? I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson. And today we continue to look at some of the off-season rankings from some of the national pundits. Logan, we have yet to find one that really likes the Commanders. Did have a good conversation about Sam Howell with Dan Orlovsky the other day. That was fun. But we got some interesting commentary on that. But Logan, we start with the big story today when most of you are hearing this. I guess kind of today when we're recording it, Wednesday, but also into tomorrow, and that is the NFL schedule release. Should note that Logan and Linnell will be hanging out at Old Ox Brewery out in Ashburn. You can go and hang out with them for a live broadcast for the schedule release on Thursday night. That follows me on the air on the Team 980, also simulcast on 106.7 The Fan. But Logan, I think last year when you look at the Commanders' schedule, we knew instantly, for instance, that the Jacksonville game being early was going to be a good thing. Right. You'd rather see a team with a new coach early, and you knew that Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson would probably eventually find their stride. Sure enough, they did. They make the playoffs. They're competitive against the Chiefs in that playoff game. But this year, I think it's interesting that I don't know if there's exactly that one that stands out quite as like a sore thumb. But here's what we got in terms of the opponents. At home, they'll have the Cowboys, Dolphins, Eagles, Cardinals, Niners, Bills, Bears, and Giants. And then away, Seahawks, Jets, Eagles, Patriots, Cowboys, Falcons, Rams, Denver, and then the Giants. So you go to MetLife twice, you get Jets and Giants. Anything in particular stick out for you of teams you want to see early, late because of injury, coaching changes, anything like that?
Yeah, I think the big one that I want to see early is the Jets probably. I think with Aaron Rodgers coming in, I think, learning he's not learning an entirely new offense, but I'm sure it's a different culture, different environment. And I just don't want him to kind of find his stride in a new city with relatively new staff. So I think I want to get that one early. The one that I think is kind of interesting is the Bills, because I thought they were kind of on a little bit of a skid last year. And I think that, losing Brian Daboll as the OC, a guy that was really maximizing what Josh Allen did at a high level, I thought really hurt them. And I think I think that's something that, Josh Allen being Josh Allen might start off hot in 2023, but I do think as a team that'll probably decline a little bit. So I kind of want to see them probably week 10, week 11. Josh Allen's a little bit banged up. The offense that they've kind of put out there, this Josh Allen centric thing. I think probably Jets early, Bills late. And then, those are the two ones that stick out to me right away. You have any thoughts, Craig?
Yeah, so there's a couple that I think stick out potentially, and on one of them in particular, it's a little too early to tell. The Niners are a team that I don't know exactly when I want to see them.
Yeah,
because Brock Purdy is coming off Tommy John surgery. He had that UCL injury, and so is he going to be ready at the start of the season? Probably not. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? Because that's the other thing. There's a chance that Sam Darnold comes in and storms off with that job. He is so talented, but has not really shown it consistently in the NFL. That said, his best stretch of football was probably the end of last year with Carolina. He started to find some things towards the end of the year when he circled back in for Baker Mayfield. It wasn't a very long stretch, but he had a couple of nice games, and Carolina got competitive for a while, mostly behind the run game, but Darnold at least could do some things, if I'm remembering correctly on that. So Darnold is a guy that goes to San Francisco. Now he's got Kyle. Like, from a talent standpoint, it's the most talented quarterback Kyle's had in a while. But is it the mental processing and stuff that we always talk about that, for instance, Purdy is fantastic at that maybe Darnold isn't, that makes him not successful even with Kyle Shanahan, despite all that physical talent, the mobility, the arm strength, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know what I want out of San Francisco, because part of me wants them early when Darnold is new in the system. Part of me is scared that, like, you haven't seen what Kyle's going to do with Darnold, and that lack of tape could come out and be, really dangerous. And maybe you'd rather see them with Purdy later in the season, if Purdy's even able to take that job back. But early feels safer, just because you don't know yet, versus whether it's Purdy or Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, if one of them finds a groove, that feels dangerous later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer, and you want to face Kyle Shanahan teams a little bit earlier in the season. I think the more film Kyle gets on you, the worse it is for your defense. I also think it's coming out of the offseason, Kyle, he's like a beautiful mind, man. Like, he just has a lot going on. There's a lot of offense in. They don't really know exactly like who and what they want to be offensively just yet. So you never really want to face a Kyle Shanahan team, but you always want to face him, I think, a little bit earlier, just because like he's so fastidious with his process in terms of game planning. Like, you could tell in the matchup last year against Washington, they knew exactly what this team was going to be doing. And I think because it was late in the year, they had a really good feel for who they are and what they wanted to be. That's offensively and defensively. So, I think that's a team you want to get earlier in the schedule. And again, not just because the quarterback flux. I do think Kyle tends to overanalyze early, and then he kind of settles in. I think, the last couple of years they've started a little bit slow and then found this kind of dominant middle of the season, kind of crescendoing to the end of the year. They're still figuring out personnel. They use that time period in a different way. I know I talked to their strength coach quite a bit. Their off season's a little bit different, a little bit more subdued. Also, I think that lends itself to a slower start because you don't have everything quite figured out from a personnel standpoint. And that's fine. They're the best team in the division. They can do that. They're going to win some games late, and they're going to make the playoffs. So, but yeah, I think that's a team you want to get kind of when they're in a little bit of a little bit of a flux. Let's just say,
Yeah, definitely. The other team that I think is interesting from both an injury and a coaching standpoint, because this is the only team, if I'm looking at this correctly, the only team they'll face with a new, I guess Denver also, with a new head coach. Denver's obviously got Sean Payton, so that's an interesting one to see how he comes together with Russell Wilson. That one feels a little Jacksonville-y. Like, maybe you want them early, get that out of the way before they've had a chance.
Which
Denver.
Okay.
So Sean Payton and Russell Wilson before they can catch a groove and figure each other out. But the other one is obviously Arizona. Arizona's a team that is going to be without Kyler Murray most of the season, probably, with that ACL, and they've got a new head coach, new OC, new everything there. So Arizona, I would say, is less interesting, just because I don't think they're going to be good at all next year, no matter what.
I agree.
I just think they're going to be bad. So in some ways, it's like, can we have them week 13 and have a soft point in the schedule before you hit that division run down the stretch? But Denver feels like the most Jacksonville team to me on their schedule, where if you can get them early, there is a chance that Russell Wilson regains some form under Sean Payton and that they find a groove as the season goes.
No, I think that's right. I think that's kind of, Tana on the show the other day, he does like a Tana's Take segment, and he kind of, I think, very acutely was like, like, that's my dark horse team this year is the Fighting Sean Paytons. And I think there's a lot of good reason to think that. They've got a very dynamic receiving group. Obviously, Russell Wilson was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a while. And like, can Sean Payton bring that out of him? I look at what he did with Jameis Winston the year that he was coaching there, and like, Jameis was good,
His best year of his career,
top 20 player. And like, he did a really good job mitigating risk, finding stuff that he could do, taking advantage of his aggressiveness, like when it was time to take advantage of it. So I definitely think, like, we talk a lot on this show about the influence of coaches on players. And I think that's a perfect example of how a new coach could dramatically impact Russell Wilson. And like, if he's impacting the most important person on your team, that's a huge deal. So yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely like a Jacksonville type fit. Get them early before they kind of figure out really who they want to be. I think Yeah, I think that's the right idea. I think teams that are going to that you might want to see later are like the Seahawks. I think the Patriots. I think you're right. The Cardinals, I don't think are going to be very good, period. But I think you want to get them while Kyler Murray's out, which could be the whole year. The Dolphins strike me as a team you also want to get early, in the sense
I
that,
want to get them in the rain. Whenever it's going to rain, give me the Dolphins in the rain.
yeah. And where's that game? Is that in Miami or is that here?
That's home.
Yeah, so I think that obviously they have a huge advantage earlier in the year because of temperature, but if that's here, it doesn't really matter as much. I do think, yeah, like I think you want to catch them a little earlier because they're in the Kyle Shanahan mold. The more film they get on you, the more prep they can have for you. Usually doesn't turn out well for you. So get them early when it's still kind of fresh, or still kind of figuring it out. But yeah, in terms of teams later, like I think the Bills are candidates for that. Cardinals anytime. Patriots are interesting. What do you think about the Patriots? That's one that I think is kind of because of Bill O'Brien's addition, I think they're going to be significantly better. I just don't know how much better,
They are such an enigma.
Yeah.
I don't know when I want that. That's one of those teams I can't make up my mind. Like, do you want it early before Mac and Bill O'Brien figure it out, or do you think that they might click early and then
fizzle
Bill's a little combustible,
Yeah.
and Mac's not exactly perfect.
Yeah.
So are they going to have a blow up mid-season and then that you can take advantage of? Do you want it also on the other side of the ball? Like, how much film do you want Belichick to have on you?
It's a tough team.
I could see we're wanting them early because that way Belichick can't plan for what EB's doing with this team. There's a lot of unknown there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a funky one for sure. Seattle, like they're to me seem kind of like they've got a good identity. They know who they are. They're gonna want to run it, but they've got big playability, and they're gonna be that the entire year. So as long as their guys are healthy, it kind of doesn't matter when you play them.
I kind of feel like Geno Smith regression though a little bit, and if Geno Smith, like I like Geno Smith, I think, but I don't think he was playing like what was it like top 7 level.
I mean, he was awesome to start last year.
Yeah, and then he kind of started to fizzle a little bit, and I think he was still playing fine. He's probably top 15. But I much prefer to play top 15 Geno Smith as opposed to top 7 Geno Smith, especially with the receiving groups, Jackson Smith and Jigma, the ad there in the slot receiver role there. So I prefer to see them later, I think, because I do think he'll cool. He's getting older, Geno Smith, so he'll cool as the season goes on. I think, this is all like total guess, but I think that's a team that, again, like I think they're going to come out like gangbusters because they always do. And I think they're going to kind of chill as the year goes on. So I want to catch them in the second half, I think.
The Rams are an interesting one too. Selfishly, if you're a player, you probably want that later in the year. You get a nice little warm weather getaway in December.
Yeah.
But and not to mention it can be 100 degrees in LA in September, so that's not super fun. But like Stafford back, do you just be like, oh, maybe he'll get hurt again? Like kind of that mindset.
And it's not even like it's not a bad injury. It's just like he's got tendonitis in his elbow and his shoulder. So like that, those are chronic use type things. And the more you play, the more you throw the football, like you're going to be less effective. And like, it sounds like he's doing better. But again, maybe later in the year, and then you get some backup quarterback and, you get to roll the Rams. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be certainly possible. Chicago's an interesting one. Obviously, Fields got better and better as the season went. There's talk out of Bears camp, as you would imagine there would be this time of year, that he, where he is now compared to where he was last year, like it's not even like the same player. He's made such a leap. So, do you want him early, late? I almost lean towards later because his style of play, he has gotten a little banged up.
Interesting, yeah.
I would lean a little bit towards later on that one, but who knows? Falcons, like, do you really want to face that run game late in the year when you're banged up? I'd probably rather have them early. When you're still hitting in practice and things like that.
I think for them, it's more like with the Falcons, it's like the game before and the game immediately after is the game.
You kind of want them before your bye week.
Yeah, right. A game like where it's like you can kind of, because you're going to come out a little like I just look at their offensive line at the moment, like, holy cow, man. Like they've got so much draft capital invested in that group. They're really good. They got a 3-headed monster in the backfield. Like it's a scary team to play, like, from a defensive standpoint. And I think, like you said, you want them kind of going into a break or going into you definitely don't want to go on a trip right afterwards. You don't want to be going to like LA after you play the Falcons,
Right.
which is probably what the schedule makers would probably do that. But I think that's the team that I think is really interesting because they of the physical play style, of their philosophy. I like your analysis on the Chicago Bears, with Fields like later in the year. I think that's 100% right. So yeah, I mean, I think that the Falcons are sneaky in that way, man. That's a sneaky team because I think they're going to be sneaky good. And I think they're going to just beat the poop out of whoever they're playing. You know what I mean? So, like, you don't need
Yeah,
that.
whether they win or not,
Yeah.
like there's going to be a toll to play. Like there was that stat last year with the 49ers, like nobody won the week after they played the
Yeah.
49ers. Like literally no one
Yeah.
won the week after they played the 49ers all regular season last year. The Falcons feel like a team that could have that same kind of effect. Last thing I'll ask you real quick. Any guesses on primetime games? Because I got a couple theories.
I mean,
We now know, as of recording, they've already released the international games. We know the Patriots are not hosting the Commanders in Germany, so no international trip this year. But the primetime games will probably be announced by the time this podcast comes out,
sure.
so people will get to know if we're right or wrong. Any thoughts on what you might see?
I mean, obviously the divisional games are going to be one of them is
Yeah.
going to be prime time. I think I think New York. I think last year those were some good primetime games late in the year. Obviously some of those were flex, but I think that's always a good matchup. Even though it'll be interesting to see where New York's at this year too. I really think like that was a little bit of an anomaly last year, not because of poor play by Daniel Jones. I just think the roster isn't good enough quite yet, and I think we've raved about the coaches and they've added some nice pieces, but I don't think they're going to be as good. I think Dallas obviously is another one that I think I could see being a primetime game. How many primetime games do they have this year? Do you know?
There is less of a limit than there used to
Oh,
be.
okay.
My guess is they'll have somewhere between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
So-
Like maybe there's 2 on the schedule, like a Thursday night, and then one of the more
Yeah.
regular prime times, and then maybe one gets flexed if they're competitive late in the season.
Yeah, I mean, because like right now, like just looking at the national narrative about the team, like there's not a lot of hype. So it's like,
Yeah.
I'd be excited to, see a Seahawks primetime game or, Jets or Bills or whatever. But I don't think the league sees that as a very competitive matchup at the moment, and like if you look at the Vegas odds for this team, they're a 6.5 win team. They think they're going to get worse compared to last year. So, like I just think it's going to be division games, and I can't see them really going outside of that for primetime work for the Commanders.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Even though there are some interesting ones, like they're going to try to get the Jets in prime time a lot
Yeah.
this year. But is this a team that they do it against? I had Joe Ferreira on my show yesterday, who used to help make the schedule, and he said that he thinks they'll be at Dallas on Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
which isn't technically prime time, but like is right. It's a 4.
Yeah.
That Dallas always plays the 3:25 game, the second game. And like they'll probably want a division game for that. The Giants played last year. Cowboys Eagles, you don't need to make prime time.
Right.
That game's going to draw massive ratings no matter what. That'll be like an America's game of the week on a regular Sunday at 4:25.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leaves the Commanders left, and the Commanders haven't played on Thanksgiving in a while, since 2020. So I think that's a distinct possibility. I ran my original theory, Logan, was that they were going to open the season at home. In prime time, whether it's Sunday or Monday Night Football, because for the first time in years, the stadium is going to be full. Like with the ownership situation, I thought they're going to host the Cowboys to open the season on Sunday or Monday Night Football. And that hey, not Josh Harris's Commanders. That could be a massive storyline where people are going to tune in and pay attention. Joe kind of shot that down. He said, I don't think that'll be a factor. Unlikely. I'm still not ready to completely let that go because I do think like a packed FedEx Field is something that the league would like to showcase.
Yeah, but I also think,
like
I
think that there's probably better options.
Yeah, opening night, like you want, and again, I think that this team's going to be pretty competitive. But when you look nationally, that's not in the card. Like right now, obviously we're in May. But people are not very high in this team. We're going to talk about position rankings in a second. But I think that's going to just be any kind of big moment, they're going to defer to somebody else. Because right now I think there's some I saw some ranking that had them as the 27th team in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot. I think we were talking about that maybe 2 weeks ago. Like there's not a lot of positive vibes here. So I think any kind of big moment, they're going to say, is there anybody else? And it's like only when it's like, these iconic matchups within the division are they going to get primetime work, I think.
Well, right, which is why I said I would think that they would make it like Cowboys visiting here.
But think about, like, if it was like Cowboys Philly, let's start the season, or you know what I mean, like some
Sure.
big, you know
No,
what I mean,
totally.
like
I totally get that. I guess my thing is for the league to showcase the NFL is back in Washington. Like, hey, you've heard all this stuff. It's been really bad. The stadium's been empty. Everyone knows it's been a joke. Snyder's awful, but now he's gone. And to see, like, hey, look, football's back in Washington. The fans are back. The stadium is jammed, and it's jammed with Commanders fans. Like,
yeah.
hey, this is like, I think that would be a smart thing for the league to do. I think it would rate well. I also understand that there's probably better options. And I also would understand if the league doesn't really want to rub dirt in the wound. They just want to quietly move on to the next ownership group, because that's seemingly how they've handled this entire thing.
I mean, do you think
Again, I think that's a mistake, but that's my thought process.
Do you think they care about this market like that, though? Like, because, like, I mean, if anything, like, I'd be like, if Washington's playing well, do that later in the year. But do you think they care about the market enough to do that right now? Do you think the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the driving forces behind them being a little more pushy with Dan. They'll be like, "Nah, man, you got to, like, even if it's behind the scenes, they're not actually going to vote him out." Where they'd be like, "Yeah, man, you got to go." Like, the loss of revenue in this market and the loss of ratings in this market is a discussion amongst league people. And getting it back is something that they really like. The whole sleeping giant thing. Like, they could just get an owner in there who knows what he's doing, and they could get a competitive team on the field. Like, the money here would be outrageous compared to what it is now. They've been one of the only teams to lose money in local revenue, or they're so far behind. I don't know whether it's an actual loss. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but they are dead last in local revenue. They're dead last in attendance. And I think, I do think there's an opportunity, if things are going well during the season, to showcase that later, obviously. But because of the way the ownership sale has gone, like, we've talked about this internally at the radio station. I'll peel back the curtain a little bit, right? Like, obviously, we would have loved to have a day of celebration where we know, like, this is when the team is going to transfer. This is when it's sold. Like, big celebration. We kind of did it when the news leaked a couple of weeks ago that there was an agreement in place. And, obviously, the fan was out at Old Ox, where you're going to be tomorrow night for the schedule release, and people came out in droves. They did the Buy Dan beer and, like, all that kind of stuff. And it was a big deal, but there was still, like, this couching of it's a non-exclusive deal. There's still a lot, this Canadian dude still kind of bidding on the team. There wasn't this moment of, like, celebration and release in the fan base like most people thought there would be. There's been just a slow drip of news. And now even it's been reported by the Post that the deal might get approved in stages. I think because of that, the big moment of celebration, the moment when fans come together to celebrate a new era, is going to be week 1, assuming that week 1 is at home. I think that game is going to be a sellout, and it's not going to be sold out with the other team's fans. It is going to be the most burgundy and gold that has been in FedEx Field, maybe since the playoff game in 2015. And so if that's the case, showcasing that to a national audience would make sense to me, but that is a giant, litany of factors when you could just put on Eagles, Chiefs, Eagles, Cowboys, whatever, and just be like, hey, here's 2 of the best teams in the sport. Here's get Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes playing, and, like, go from there. So I get it. But I do think it's an opportunity for them at some point to be featured in a major way, in a primetime window because of that reason.
Yeah, and I think that's something that would probably happen later, I would think. Just knowing the league and, like, kind of how they do early matchups, it's like, these are the best teams last year. Look at them play. It's really exciting. And even if those teams aren't very good, like last year the Bucks were not very good, but they had a whole bunch of primetime games early because Tom Brady, because they draw eyes, I think if this team does even, mediocre, even if they're, like 8-6 going to the last half of the season, like, they're going to get some more love in that department, I think, because of the reason you're talking about. And I think they deserve it. They would deserve it if that was the record, but I think they're going to wait. They're going to slow play it because, again, I just, the more national media you consume, and this is everywhere. This is, PFF, this is Vegas, this is, whatever it is, the expectation for this team is extremely low. And I don't think the league is going to bet on low expectations coming out the gate.
Yeah. They seemingly always play Philly on a Monday night. They seemingly
Yeah,
always play New York on a Thursday. So I would
I
mark
think
that
that's
down as
probably it.
potential
Yeah,
too. You get an Amazon game on a Thursday against the Giants, home or away. I could see them doing that with the Jets game, honestly, as well, potentially. And then, maybe they get a Monday night game against the Eagles or Cowboys. We'll see. And by the time this comes out, chances are we'll probably know.
yeah.
My Beat.
Our pleasure to welcome back to the show our good friend Kevin Sheehan. I believe this is the first time we've had a well-rested Kevin Sheehan. First time he's been on since he moved out of the morning show. Sheehan, what's up, man? How are you?
Oh, man, I am so well-rested. I feel great. I am spry, just worked out. I'm going to stay up and watch NBA until 1 a.m. this morning. It's awesome. Love the new schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I do afternoons, obviously. I still can't stay up to watch the West Coast games. I don't have it in me. I don't know why. It's just not really, how I'm built.
It's been so good.
I know. I will say I have discovered that the NBA, as part of like League Pass, which I got during the year, they have these they have like 8 alternate broadcasts that you can look through to rewatch the game. There's like a 10-minute condensed version, but there's one called the All Possessions version where I can watch an entire game and see all of the relevant action in about 40 minutes, and that's pretty great at like 9 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. When you actually wager on the games, that's not the way you necessarily want to consume it because you don't get the rush that you get with, gambling on a game and then watching a game. But no, what's funny, Craig? I know you're into the NBA, and I don't have the League Pass because I don't watch a lot of the regular season. I watch a lot of the Wizards games, but I don't watch a lot of the regular season. Every year when you get to this time of year, it's just confirmation that they are two totally different things. The NBA playoffs are completely different than NBA regular season games. It's almost like a different product altogether. And it's a great product every year. This year in particular has been one of the, the better runs of the first 2 rounds we've seen in a long time. And apparently ratings are through the roof, which is good for them.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you this, though, as someone who's been watching the NBA for longer than I have. Does it feel like that is more dramatic now? And by the way, we are going to talk schedule with Sheehan here in a moment, but this, I think, is also interesting. Do you think that's more dramatic now than it used to be? It feels that way to me, but like if you think back 90s or even 80s versus like my file goes back to the early 2000s as, really cognizantly watching the league. Like, do you feel like that difference between regular season and playoffs is more dramatic now than it used to be?
Yes. I think just, everybody's favorite topic when it comes to talking about the NBA, things like load management, make it different. The regular season's different than it used to be. It's worse. And so there is a greater disparity between a worse regular season and still a very great postseason. I remember, too, Craig, that if you go back to like the 80s, and to me the 80s were phenomenal with the Lakers and the Celtics and the Sixers and, just the rivalries and the stars. There wasn't as much NBA regular season on TV. So, there was a game of the week once the NFL season was over on Sundays on CBS as an example, and that was a bigger deal, for a regular season game. But still, I think the way the games were played back then are similar to the way they're played now in terms of the intensity, the defense from the jump, the pressure of kind of more possession by possession versus, a regular season game that would come down to kind of the last few minutes of the fourth quarter where there was real tension. It's great, and it's probably much different than it used to be.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's so great about playoff basketball is you just see the coaching matter on such a different level, which was funny this year with the Wizards because everyone just wanted to kill Wes Unseld. And I'm like, I don't know if Wes Unseld's good or not. I'm not defending him saying that he's awesome, but with how they managed players this year from an organizational standpoint, you're mad at his rotations because guys got hurt every 3 games? Like, what are you talking about? But in the playoffs, you watch how Kerr, tweaks his lineup and makes this adjustment or that adjustment. And I legitimately don't know. For instance, one of the things we'll talk about later in the hour is, like, I don't know if the Lakers can beat this Warriors team now that they found this Gary Payton lineup. Like, I that might be the adjustment they can't adjust to. And that's, like, the beauty of the playoffs to me is there's always a point in the series where a team just runs out of adjustments, and then it's just who can play and who can't. And that to me is what makes playoff basketball so much different than the regular season, where you're just trying to win as many out of 82 as you can, and that means you can't go all out and change everything either by player power or by brain power every single night.
Well, they did beat the Gary Payton lineup in Game 4, but
I don't think they used it enough. Like Kerr beat himself in Game 4 by not going back to that enough.
I don't know what happened to JaMychal Green after playing 2 really good games, but if
he remembered he was
Kerr's
JaMychal Green.
Right. I think it's so revealing of coaching as well, but I think it's very revealing of the players. I don't know that you really know how good the players are until they get into games that really matter start to finish. And there's that extra pressure to perform. And I think that it's very revealing of players this time of year. And you learn so much more about players than you do during the regular season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, just for whatever it's worth, in the 2 games that the Curry, Thompson, Green, Wiggins, Payton lineup has played, they've averaged 20 minutes per game, and it's the best lineup of any 5-man lineup in this entire round of the playoffs. So they have done really well with it.
Well, then I guess we're going to see that one tomorrow night, regardless of how well Kevon Looney played off the bench last night, which, look, he can't guard Anthony Davis. I understand that. He was sick for a couple of games.
Yeah.
The Davis thing is, the big story there. But
for sure.
I don't think I hope for his sake he plays and he plays well, because he would be remembered for missing or not playing enough in Game 6 if they went on to lose this series.
Yeah. I hope he gets to play. I hope he's healthy. And then we'll see. I just also, because I picked the Warriors, hope that they lose because I like being right. All right. Speaking of guys being right, Kevin Sheehan's with us talking NBA playoffs. Now to the point that we initially had him on for, which is talking schedule. You, sir, got your 1-1 on mock schedule if you just stop at week 1. Why did you think the Cardinals were going to be the season opener, and what do you make of that matchup?
I mean, first of all, it's like I've never gotten a season opener right with my mock draft. I think one year I got the Giants right, but it was in the wrong location. But I mean, this is – I get mocked for this mock, and justifiably so. I rarely get more than one right, and some years I don't get any right. But getting the opener right's big, because I think more thought goes into the opener for me than any other. And my reasoning was that to open up a new era without Dan Snyder, that first home game was going to be a game that you could actually sell out, which has been a problem here recently. And you weren't going to need opponents' fans to do it. And it was more wishful thinking as much as anything else. I didn't want Dallas or Philly to be the home opener, because I didn't want the park overtaken by their fans on a day that will feel, I think, celebratory when we get to it. And I don't know if the NFL gave that any consideration at all. That's what I was thinking. And I thought Arizona had the least imposing, fan base. And you wouldn't have Cardinals fans in the park, and you could fill it with all Washington fans in what should be, the first game of a new era that doesn't include, the owner of the last 24 and a half years. And that's why I came up with Arizona.
Yeah,
it was definitely a shot in the dark, and I have no idea if the NFL considered it that way, but that's the way I considered it. So I'm happy.
Yeah, you'd have to think they would, which is why I'm kind of surprised they didn't go bigger. Like, I was on board with, give it Dallas week 1, put it in prime time. Because I actually think that game, Kevin, is going to be, now versus Arizona at 1 o'clock, we'll see. But because this sale has been so slow and in pieces, and we'll see what the next pieces are, obviously, over the next couple of weeks after the Post reporting yesterday. But there hasn't been this moment of catharsis celebration. And I thought it was going to be week 1 where that stadium is finally going to be sold out with Commanders fans, pretty much no matter who the opponent is. And I'm kind of surprised because of that it's Arizona, which just feels like a very lackluster match.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have been able to stop the Dallas fans from getting into the stadium or Philadelphia fans from getting in.
Sure.
And so that's why I would have hated for that particular game, which actually will be a game. I mean, I haven't been to a home game in a couple of years. I've had little interest in going to any home games in a few years. And obviously we had 2020 without fans anyway. But that's a game that would be interesting to me, and it would be great if it were filled with Washington fans rather than having to deal with the Dallas and Philadelphia, contingent. But anyway, it's Arizona and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't get traded in the offseason. So we'll see what happens. I would guess, by the way, my next guess is Washington will be about a 5.5 to 6 point favorite in that opener.
I wonder too, because like the national media, we spent a lot of time on it this week, probably too much time if I'm being honest, on how down they are. But Arizona is like the one team that feels, especially at that point of the season, that they're definitely worse without Kyler coming off the ACL. The other big talking point so far today, obviously, is the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Joe Ferreira was on our show the other day, who used to obviously work on the schedule. He said he was guessing that would be the case. Are you pro Commanders playing at Dallas on Thanksgiving, or are you on the Chris Russell team that hates it with every fiber of your being?
Well, first of all, I mentioned the Joe Ferreira appearance on your show, and I thought he was going to be wrong, and I'll tell you why. He said Dallas was due to play an NFC team. Well, they played an NFC team last year. So I thought he may have gotten confused on your show and been wrong, because I thought Dallas was going to play an AFC team. Now, once we saw the Jets were playing on Black Friday, that was one of the Dallas home opponents. The other one was the Patriots. I thought, and this is Joe Ferreira, who was involved for many years in helping to put this schedule together. I'm like, well, he can't be wrong, but he said something that was wrong. But it turns out he was right. As it turns out, as for what I think about Thanksgiving Day games, I used to love Washington and Dallas on Thanksgiving. I don't care as much anymore, but no, I don't hate it. It's 5 times now in 11 seasons after it being much less often than that. I think that, before 2012 when RG3's team went to Dallas, and that's the first of now 5 trips in 11 years to Dallas on Thanksgiving, it had been 10 years since Washington had played the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. I don't hate it. I'm 50-50 on it. It doesn't bother me at all. We always host Thanksgiving, and everybody understands, and most of the people there are interested in the game anyway, so we just schedule around it.
Honestly, I'm psyched because I think that means I can probably work Thursday. Maybe we'll be in on Friday to react to the game, and then I got the weekend off. I don't have to worry about a game on Sunday. Like I'm pro Thursday football for me. I'm selfish that way. For the players,
well,
it's awful.
You know this because you did it with me for a year or two. Hosting the pregame show for 14 years, I did not want Thanksgiving Day games, and we had a few of them over the years.
Well, if you're hosting Thanksgiving, for sure, that's a bad. You can't be in two places at once. That ended up
being more of a problem for my wife than me. But I didn't want it. I didn't want it to be a problem for her. But who cares about our personal, travails when it comes to scheduling? It's Thanksgiving. It's Washington and Dallas. It's a big deal. It'll get a huge rating. I hope it's a big game by the time we get there.
Agreed. Kevin Sheehan with us, of course, the Kevin Sheehan Show, 10 to 1 here on the Team 980 each and every weekday. My actual, real, legitimate gripe about that game is it follows reportedly a away game at New York. And look, if you're going to be at New York or at Philly, that's certainly better than if you had to come back from across the country. But Kevin, I don't understand why the NFL allows back-to-back road games Sunday, Thursday. It just is a huge player safety issue. The product is already so compromised on Thursday night. Like, do you have any, one, do you agree with that? And two, is there any reason why they couldn't ban that where you have to, if you're going to play Sunday, Thursday, one of them has to be at home?
Well, it's a trip to New York, and I would assume it's a 1:00 game. They played a home game at night against the Packers in 2016 and then went to Dallas. So that was, in terms of time between actual game, the game being played, that was as close as you can cut it. I think it's such an unbelievable logistical challenge to put this thing together that it's impossible to avoid some of these things. Look, they would never allow a trip to Denver or Seattle or L.A., where Washington plays in all 3 of those places this year, and then come back and go to Dallas on the following Thursday. I think New York's a lot different. A New York 1 o'clock game to me is not that big of a deal. I mean, you're home in an hour after the game ends.
Yeah.
You may be home faster than if you played a home game in Landover.
Depending on traffic, that is a legitimate point. I do remember the night game thing. That and Dallas had one that was similar to that when I was working down there. That was awful. Where you're not done till midnight, 1 a.m. and then you because like what will happen for fans that don't know is like Rivera and the staff will start working when they like as soon as the game is over. They will start working. And if you play on Sunday Night Football or even the 4:25 game, that's just not an option. So that game's got to be at 1 o'clock on the Sunday before. And if that's the case and you're home by 7:30, I guess it's not that big of a deal. But it just feels like one of the rules that should be input into the algorithm. Please don't spit this out.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's probably in there that you can't play, out of your time zone, especially, a West Coast time zone for an East Coast team and then do it. But I'm sure that was probably something that was allowable.
Kevin Sheehan with us for just a minute or two more here on the Hoffman Show. Any other your mock schedule? How many of your picks are still alive? How many of them have been
Honestly,
dead?
I don't know. I'm not paying attention to it as much as I was. When I got the information about Arizona, I put that out. I had the information about closing with Dallas at home earlier. And I know a lot of this stuff is coming out and people are being able to piecemeal it together with other leaks that are legitimate. So I don't really have a really good sense. I mean, I didn't even know until you just mentioned that New York was before the Dallas game. I knew about the Thanksgiving Day game. I know about the Jets apparently on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Chicago for Thursday Night Football. I think we're going to find, if somebody hasn't reported this already, I think we're going to find that the Thursday night game is the only primetime game. Dallas would be the other, nationally televised game Thanksgiving Day, afternoon that sort of bleeds into primetime. But we may find out tonight at 8 o'clock that they only got one legitimate primetime game, and it's the game against the Bears. That's surprising to me, actually. I would have thought that they would have had at least a Monday night game on top of that. Last year, they had two scheduled primetime games, Philly on Monday night, Chicago on Thursday night. They ended up with three because the Giant game late in the year got flexed to Sunday night.
Right.
There's a lot of big-time teams in the AFC that they got to fill up with primetime slots. And in their own division, there are three teams that are going to deserve more primetime, exposure than they will.
With Philly still looming, I do wonder if they get I know Joe. I've seen every time I look up at the TVs in the studio here, I see Joe Buck on TV on NFL Live. So I know they're announcing a bunch of Monday night games, and I haven't been able to track down the list yet. But I do wonder if they get Philly on Monday night because it seems like they always play Philly on a Monday night.
Yeah,
that to me is my one holdout.
Oh, so you think they might get Philly on a Monday night?
Yeah, I could see even a week 2, week 3, because like all the other divisional games, Giants are week 7 and 11, Cowboys are 12 and 18. They always try to get one early, so maybe that week 2, week 3, week 4, somewhere in that first quadrant.
You might be right. I had somebody tell me earlier, somebody that would be sort of in the know, that Washington's lone primetime game was going to be that Chicago game, and then their other high-profile game would be the Thanksgiving Day game. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't get flexed into games later on in the year.
Yeah. Oh, so you're working. I'm just recklessly speculating.
It's not as solid as the information on Arizona and Dallas earlier, but I have a feeling it might be right.
Gotcha.
That would be a surprise to me, though.
Yeah, we'll see. And then, of course, you'll be talking about it. You podcasting tomorrow as well, or just got the radio show tomorrow?
Radio and podcast always on weekdays ending in Y, so we do that.
Excellent. All right, so they got that double Sheehan tomorrow here on the radio, of course, 10 to 1. And then if you miss any part of the show, you can subscribe to his podcast, not to be confused with the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. Kevin, always appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Try to stay up tonight. Jokic and Phoenix should be a good one.
It should be. And if not, I will catch it in the 40-minute condensed version tomorrow.
See ya.
See you, buddy. Bye. This is what I can do, Anthony, because I I'm not gambling on the games. I am strictly watching them for analysis. Kevin is watching them because he has more than an emotional investment.
I think I too fall victim to that. I put a little wagering on the last couple of games, and I've come up short. 3 stats the last 2 nights. So.
I gotta check. I should check lines more often because as I walk out of our office, I am in the BetMGM radius.
Yes, you are.
It's very easy for me to do this, even though the District of Columbia has made it harder than it should be. But yeah, we'll see.
I was close to turning $5 into $400. I fell short. Anthony Davis rebound, a Steph Curry rebound,
Yikes.
and a LeBron James assist.
That's not actually that close then.
That's pretty close.
I mean, how many legs did you have in this parlay?
I had like 12. I took a couple of unders. I took Klay Thompson under 22.
Do you just do like one giant silly parlay every night?
Yeah, but it's like safe bets. Like I thought Steph Curry was going to get 4
Anthony,
rebounds.
I'm going to teach you something right now that's super important. Okay? There's no such thing as a safe bet. Have you been to Vegas?
I have, and I did not win.
You seen all those casinos?
Yep.
You ever walk through them?
Yeah.
They air conditioned?
Yep.
Yeah, they don't air condition the desert because they lose.
Yeah, that was definitely me. Yep.
Yeah. All right. When we get back, are we talking playoffs next? Or are we doing we catching everybody up on the rest of the schedule leaks?
I think we can do both. I think we start off with the schedule leaks and then transition.
Boom. That's the plan. That's why he's the producer of the show. That's what we're doing next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/@theteam980. Looking now. No more Commanders schedule leaks as of now. So we'll get you caught up on some of the other NFL ones as we go here a little later in the show. Of course, 4 to 7 each and every day here on the Team 980. So I want to look at the Lakers-Warriors series, which Anthony and I both correctly predicted would be extended last night. Warriors now trying to do something that they've done in every series they've ever had with Stephen Curry, which is win a road game. They do that, they go back home for Game 7. Who knows? Warriors, of course, no stranger to 3-1 leads or deficits. Of course, the famous 2016 overcome a 3-1 deficit against Oklahoma City. Game 6 Clay is born, and then they blow a 3-1 lead to LeBron in the finals. There would be some, I don't even know what the poetic justice story arc, et cetera, would be if they were to come back 3-1 over LeBron. It'd be kind of wild to see how that was dissected. I'm sure like the Stephen A's and Skip Baylesses of the world would be very rational. They would, Anthony, there's no way they would take that and talk about how that changes LeBron's legacy or Steph's legacy somehow, would they?
They would be too excited. I know Stephen A will be very excited.
Oh, Skip would go nuts if LeBron blew a 3-1 lead.
Yeah, yep. Skip too. I forgot all about him.
Yeah, that's good. We shouldn't. I'm sad that I even mentioned his name, to be honest. He's just the bloviating worst. I mean, to be honest, like I don't think it affects LeBron's legacy. Like the only thing LeBron can do is continue to cement greatness. There are no dents that can be added to his resume. I do think for Steph, continuing to, like, I think more people get on board with him being a top 10 all-time NBA player. And honestly, he is now at the point where if he wins another title, he's pushing top 5. And it's almost hard to argue. If he has 5 championships, like, that's rarefied air. That's Magic Jordan. You know, and then Russell in a different era with the 11. But, like, best players on a championship team, that's it. That's the list, man. And then obviously Kobe has 5 as well. His a little bit different because obviously Shaq was the best player on probably the entirety of the first 3. Certainly got that run started. So I think, you know, the larger stuff, we can get there because they lose Game 6 and it's whatever. And we're having a different discussion. And, you know, we started to talk about it a little bit yesterday with Mark Kessinger. It's like, could this be the end? What do the Warriors do? There's so much uncertainty around Draymond and what he could do contractually, around Bob Myers and what's next for him, the architect of this whole thing. You know, Steve Kerr's had health issues over the years. Would he ever consider stepping away? The only thing that seems certain is Steph. But last night, I think you show why the series isn't over. And it really does go back to me to Game 4 and how frustrating that is as someone who picked the Warriors and is rooting for them in that vein. Like, I really think they played themselves in Game 4. I do not think that they did a good enough job of managing their strengths in Game 4. I don't think Curry was on the ball enough. I don't think they played the Gary Payton lineup enough. And it's pretty clear to me that the Lakers don't have an answer to this. I mentioned this when Sheehan was on a couple minutes ago, and we took an NBA playoffs detour. But, like, these are the stats per game of the Warriors' Gary Payton lineup, right? So it's Payton, Wiggins, Green, Thompson, Curry. That lineup is plus 10 per game these last couple of games. They've only played in 2 games this round, the last 2. And Kerr did it to start the game, right? So you're facing, theoretically, the Lakers' best. They're averaging 51 points a game just with that lineup. For reference, now they've played a lot more minutes, but that is the second highest lineup in terms of scoring in these playoffs, or in this round of the playoffs, because that's how I currently have it scored. There's the third highest behind the Knicks starters, who play more minutes, and the Nuggets starters, who are the Nuggets starters. But in terms of plus minus, like, the Warriors lineup is better. They have a better defensive output to kind of make up that gap. They're shooting over 53% from the field, and that's with only shooting 33% from three. And you know that lineup, if Klay gets going, can do a lot better than that. They're getting to the free throw line. They're averaging 5 free throws or 5.5 free throws a game. And I'm guessing by the fact that they're shooting 90%, that's mostly Curry and Thompson. And then I think the biggest thing is like they rebound exceptionally well. You know, compared to like that Knicks lineup or the Nuggets lineup that play similar amounts of minutes per game, like the Warriors rebound at a better rate. Part of that is that they force more misses because they're better defensively. Their assist rate is one of the highest. It actually is the highest of any lineup in this round of the playoffs. So they're just so well-rounded. And if you're the Lakers, like I don't know what the solution is. And if I'm Darvin Ham, that scares the daylights out of me. Because typically the solution is like, do you tweak your own lineup somehow? But if you, like, your options are try to be more effective defensively against a lineup that is already effective defensively and thus you're having trouble scoring, or go for more offense, like a guy like Rui Hachimura comes in for Jared Vanderbilt, and then, like, can that lineup guard? You're giving away your biggest strength, being the best defensive team in the league. To me, the best thing they can do is just relentlessly attack some of those guys and try to get them in foul trouble so that lineup can't play. Because that is also, by the way, a strength of the Lakers is getting to the free throw line, Anthony. But I think that the Warriors could potentially, as long as they don't go through some massive shooting slump, ride this lineup to overcoming a 3-1 victory. I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think they can, Craig. And part of the reason I say that is because we saw Draymond Green go out there and put up 20 and 10. When's the last time we really saw Draymond be as offensively aggressive as we did yesterday? Also, we saw Andrew Wiggins have, his best outing of the series, going out and scoring 25 points. So I think those other guys did step up, but can you maintain that? I can't see Draymond going out there and scoring 20 again. I can't see, Wiggins going out there and shooting the ball as well as he did. Gary Payton II, I think he just wants it more than anybody. He's going to be relentless on the boards. He's going to make all the hustle plays. I think he is perfect in that role, but it's more so can those other guys be consistent. You talk about a Game 6, Klay Thompson is notorious for Game 6 performances, so could he be the other guy? But I just personally, I don't see it. I think the Lakers are going to go back to, getting to the foul line. They only shot 15 free throws yesterday, and I do think it was a little bit of home cooking to start the game.
I saw you tweeting.
The Lakers were not getting some calls, but they only shot 15 free throws yesterday. So if the Warriors can, again, play without fouling and allow their defense to travel with them on the road, because that's what we haven't been able to see the Warriors do, play solid defense on the road. They go out there, they still Game 6. I think they win Game 7, but I think the Lakers close it out in 6.
I definitely think that's possible. Like, the Warriors have been so bad on the road this year. I trust them more in a big spot than this Lakers team, which is reliant on a guy in Anthony Davis who isn't reliable. And, well, yes, do I think Draymond's going to have 20 again? Definitely not. But do I think Klay will have 10 again? No. Like, I think Klay, this is the kind of moment that Klay's been waiting for literally his whole life. Like, remember, Klay Thompson is the son of a Lakers legend. He grew up going to games there because his dad is now the radio broadcaster. It's been highlighted on multiple telecasts throughout this postseason. And there's been a lot of talk about how, like, Klay grew up not necessarily wanting to play for the Lakers, but especially when he got to the league, like, wanting to crush them. And here's your chance, man. Here's your chance in Game 6. And I think Klay rises to those types of moments. And if he can go out and not only continue to play solid defense and do the things he's doing off the ball, but hit some shots because he's kind of due for a game. Like, Klay's inconsistent compared to what he used to be, but he still rides that roller coaster pretty consistently, where it's like a couple down, couple up, couple down, couple up. And it's about time for an up for Klay. He went 3 for 12 in the last game. I just don't think that's in the cards for him. I do think a guy like Payton is just such an effective cutter and frees up a lot of stuff and can space the floor a little bit more for them. He's just a smart basketball player. The way he moves around the court is just different. Is Wiggins going to have 25 again? No, but like also Curry had 27, a pretty inefficient 27. What happens if he goes nuts? Well, he hasn't had has he even had a 30-point game in this series? I guess he did in game 4. I think he had a 30-point triple-double, right? Real quick, pulling it up. Yeah, he had 31 in the loss in Game 4. But what if he goes nuts? He hasn't had a night yet. So if they can do that in Game 6 and then get the help again because they're back at home Game 7, again, like I just don't know. Let me rephrase. I think some of the stuff that happened is a mindset and aggression, and I think the Warriors can keep that with their backs against the wall. That's part one. Part two is I think some of the stuff that like Draymond got is because of the lineup on the floor and the challenges it presents to the Lakers, and I don't necessarily think the Lakers have an answer for those challenges.
I think Anthony Davis, hopefully he plays in Game 6, will rise to the occasion. Again, 23-9, that's a solid outing, but again, we need a monstrous performance. So I think he's due for a game. And then also LeBron James. All series long, we have not seen LeBron James shoot the ball relatively well. And I think he knows the stakes of this Game 6 and not wanting to go back to Golden State, just like they did against the Grizzlies. I think LeBron, he's shared the message to his team. This is a must-win. And I think he's going to come out and he's going to be looking to dominate.
I think he will, and I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to see how they handle that. Wiggins has done a pretty good job on him. Yes. You know, Draymond's done a pretty good job. But I think LeBron just tries to go for it. Because here's the other factor, Anthony. The longer the series goes, this was always going to favor Golden State. Now, when you're down 3-1, that doesn't favor you at all because you got one bad shooting night or one bad anything or one great game on, of Lonnie Walker, the fourth game away from, you going home. But the pace that the Warriors play at, I think, is also a factor and has started to wear down the Lakers a little bit. I think Darvin Ham was smart to pull the plug a little bit early last night, but also that game was a little bit like, in a way, he would have been smarter to pull it at the beginning of the fourth and just be like, we're done. We're just going to go back. We're going to save it for home. I realize that's risky. And you see, by the way, why it's risky, right? Anthony Davis gets hurt at a point where you could argue they should have just pulled the plug. It probably was a little early. Like it's still like a sub 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. In the NBA playoffs, you play that out.
Mm-hmm. They got it close as 9.
Right.
Hit a 3.
Right. No, 100%. But like, Anthony Davis doesn't play, and it's like it's a wholly different thing. That's why you don't want to mess around and just be like, we'll get him in Game 6. Yeah. No, there's too many things that could go against you. But I think that the challenges that the Warriors present, not only with the lineup stuff that we're talking about, the adjustments that they made, and God forbid, like Jordan Poole gets going or something like that, but the pace and the attention to detail it takes to guard them is so grinding over the course of a long series that I do wonder if this Lakers team that is a almost bizarre combination of youth that hasn't been here before and experience that is old, in NBA years in LeBron, or like plays old and Anthony Davis is actually going to hold up in Game 6, in Game 7. We find out tomorrow night, and then on Sunday, we'll obviously be previewing it more tomorrow night here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, we'll take a look around the NFL. What about some of the other schedule leaks, primetime games, etc.? We're also going to talk about some of the All-NBA selections later on in the show and how they could affect the league. Actually, we'll kind of be able to do some of that next as well. But 6 o'clock, I'm excited to do this. Ron Rivera said something on John Keim's podcast that sent the Commanders' media ecosystem into a tizzy. My question is why? That's coming up at 6 on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
DeAndre Ayton is going to be out tonight for the Phoenix Suns. That, of course, the late game, Denver-Phoenix. Denver can close it out. Early game, Boston-Philadelphia. Philly trying to close things out at home, advance to the conference finals. Nuggets, Jamal Murray, also questionable, by the way, for that game. He has an illness. Nationals are off tonight. Just wrapped up a series in San Francisco. Mets lost already today to Cincinnati. That was a 5-0 final. And then the Mets headed here for their weekend series against Washington starting tomorrow. Last night, NWSL Challenge Cup, the Washington Spirit win 4-2. First team in NWSL history to score 4 goals from outside the 18-yard box. Just a series of bangers highlight goals that if you haven't seen, highly recommend you do so. Got a couple of them on my Twitter page at Craig Hoffman. That's what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. So we got NFL schedule leaks all over the place. Not a ton on the Commanders yet. If you're watching on YouTube, we have a special graphic and everything that we have been using throughout the day. What we know as of now: Week 1, Arizona. Week 5, Chicago on Thursday Night Football. Week 7, Giants. Week 11 at Giants. Week 12 at Dallas. Week 16 at the Jets. Week 18 against Dallas. That's what we know as of now for the Commanders' schedule. But here's what we got for the rest of the league. And a lot of these are the primetime games that start to leak out, which is how it happens every year. Week 5, which, again, the week that the Commanders are playing the Bears. Thursday night, the Sunday Night Football game will be Niners-Cowboys in the Bay Area, so that's pretty fun. Week 13, a rematch of the 49ers and the Eagles NFC Championship game. That's pretty sweet. Just early December game, December 3rd on that one. Bears are going to open with the Packers. Then, obviously, we know Week 5, they're here. And then Week 17, Cincinnati going to take a late season trip to face the Chiefs. Week 17, Bengals at Arrowhead. That's pretty spicy, Anthony. I'm actually kind of surprised they put that one that close to the playoffs when you're thinking that could be AFC title game type of stuff. Do it Week 17.
The thing is, they did this the first time the Bengals and Chiefs met in the AFC title game.
True.
So,
and you had, obviously, the DeMar Hamlin game last year with the Bills and the Bengals. Yep. Same kind of thing. It was a late season game that we all anticipated playing in the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I guess this is something a thing they're doing now. I don't really get it. But
Week 17. Yeah, that is.
Week 17.
That's weird.
Weird. Bills open on Monday Night Football against the Jets. That's the Aaron Rodgers debut. They host the Jags in London on October 8th. Jags, by the way, playing twice in London this year. Bills host, and then they go Week 5 in London, Week 6 at home, hosting the Giants. So Brian Daboll's return. Browns Steelers Week 11. Bucks get the Packers Week 15. Jordan Love and the Packers visit the Broncos Week 7. That one's out. Cardinals are going to start with 2 NFC East opponents. So you get, obviously, the opener here, and then they go back home and face the Giants in Week 2. Chargers are visiting the Jets on Monday Night Football. They have a bunch of primetime games. Not shocking with the Jets. Jets have host the Chargers Week 9. And then the Chargers are at Green Bay Week 11. A bunch of the Chiefs' schedule is leaked out, so we'll stop down here for a second. Chiefs start on the season opener against the Lions. They host, obviously, as the defending champion. Kansas City will visit the Jaguars for their home opener Week 2. Week 4, they're going to the Jets. That's a Sunday night football game. Chiefs then get the rematch with Tyreek Hill. Week 9, they host the Dolphins in Germany. That was previously announced. Chiefs and Eagles, Monday night at Arrowhead. Super Bowl rematch. That is Week 11. Week 13, they go to Green Bay, Sunday Night Football. Christmas Day, they're hosting the Raiders. And then they're, as we just mentioned, hosting the Bengals on New Year's Eve, Week 17. That is a lot of...
That's a schedule right there.
A lot of primetime major games. But I guess when all your games feel like they matter, that's what you get.
Do.
We knew that Anthony Richardson and the Colts were going to Germany to take on the Patriots. Commanders, we've told you there's nothing new on this list that I haven't seen yet. Although Week 1, Washington opens at home against the Cardinals per 980 The Fan. Thanks, Sports Illustrated. I guess I'll give you credit for where I'm reading from here. Maybe you can get our name right. We tried, Anthony. We tried. Poor Kevin Sheehan. 980 The Fan. It's not that hard. Cowboys will open up on the road facing the Giants on Sunday night. Week 2, Dallas gets the Jets at home. Week 5, Dallas will take on the 49ers. That's Sunday Night Football. Prescott and the Cowboys welcome the Giants. Week 10, last game before Thanksgiving is in Carolina for Dallas. Then obviously Commanders on Thanksgiving, and then they're at Week 18 here. Dolphins, they visit the Patriots Week 2 on Sunday night. That's the big one there. They also face the Jets on Black Friday. Eagles have had a bunch leak. They are opening their season at New England, which is super interesting. Week 11, they visit the Chiefs on Monday night. Eagles, 49ers, 425. We talked about that one. And then they host the Giants on Christmas Day. And then they play again 2 weeks later. That's Week 16, Week 18, which is similar to kind of what happened to them last year. But that's where the Eagles are right now. Any other Giants game? Oh, the entire Giants schedule leaked. So I'm not gonna read the Giants' entire schedule. But we know it's week 7 and week 11 for the Commanders. So some good ones on the schedule already. That's the latest on the leaks. Obviously, the final hour of the show, we get any more Commanders, we will discuss there. Next, though, what are we going to discuss? Ron Rivera telling John Kine something that he has been very consistent about, and I don't get why everyone else is mad about it. That's next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And for some reason, let me see, if I put my finger on it, probably because he hasn't had a winning season in Washington. Most fans think he's a mediocre coach, and, well, he hasn't really done anything to this point to prove otherwise. Ron Rivera can't get the benefit of the doubt on anything. However, over the next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to give it to him. And it's not even the benefit of the doubt. I'm just going to give him credit. Let's call it what it is. It's credit for saying something out loud that we all know is happening, being consistent with it, and, in my opinion, being right about it. That is roster building. Yes, roster building. The term that sends Commanders fans into a tizzy. As if there were any other freaking choice. And this is what I think drives me nuts. So if you're like, Craig, what are you talking about? Ron Rivera was on the John Keim Report with John Keim, very aptly named podcast. And this is an interview that Ron did mostly about Sam Howell, or that Ron did with John about Sam Howell. That was kind of the crux of John's piece that he wrote on ESPN.com over the weekend of why the Commanders are moving forward with Howell. But at the end, he asked him about, hey, ownership, new owner coming in, you've been through this before, what are you going to do? And Ron said, well, I really wish I had been more clear with my plan when new ownership came in, obviously talking about David Tepper in Carolina, but I'm going to plan to do that this time around. I'm going to tell them what we've done. I'm going to tell them what we've been trying to do now.
My first 3 years, these were the things that we wanted to do. Well, what happened this year? This year, I made decisions to do certain things. I made a decision. These are why I made decisions to change my coordinator. These are the decisions that we're doing right now, and this is what we really feel is this opportunity to roster build. Okay, pure roster build. Saying this is about going forward. This is not about now. I don't even think I'm trying to do anything because I'm desperate. I'm doing things the right way. Okay? Because at the end of the day, if they're not happy and they want to let me go, great. But at least the roster is in the position that if you come in with this philosophy saying, we got to build what we got right now, the quarterback is the right guy, the running game is in place, and we got 5 playmakers. Okay? And when I say that, I'm talking about 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. Those are your 5 playmakers on the field at a time. You can feel good that this team is going forward. That's what I'm doing. Okay, I'm not worried about what the decision is after a year. What I'm worried about is making sure that this roster is being built, it's in place, and if I leave it in a good position.
One, I think that's admirable because I actually don't think he's just blowing smoke there. If all of a sudden he were to get blown out, this roster is in a good position, either to move forward with some good pieces or to have contracts that you can easily move on from and essentially start over without a lot of dead weight. And that's the thing that I think people don't realize about the way Ron has approached this offseason. I think it's important to point this out as well. Ron Rivera is not just the head coach. He is the president of football operations. This is not a head coach who goes to his GM and is like, please help me. This is a head coach who goes to his GM and goes, hey, this is what we're going to do because I'm your boss. And that is a very different dynamic than most coaches who are in some sort of lame duck year. Ron's not technically in a lame duck year in terms of contract. He is in the year that most coaches either get fired or get an extension. And he is also obviously facing new ownership, presumably Josh Harris coming in before the start of the season. So I think it is admirable that Ron, with the power and the capability to do that, to try to do something crazy, to cut John Allen and not sign Daron Payne and cut Curtis Samuel and take all that dead money, but at least create the cap space to sign Lamar Jackson to an outrageous contract. He didn't do that because it wouldn't have been smart. And this is, I get criticizing Rivera about a million things. Rewind a year, listen to me talk about Wentz, tell me I'm soft on Ron. All right? That was an indefensible trade. I said it at the time, said it all year. There were times I was like, I don't know, maybe it'll work. Probably not. And the probably not sure as hell came true. But realistically, I don't know what people wanted them to do outside of the gaggle of people who refused to accept that Lamar Jackson wasn't actually an option for this team and refused to accept the reality of what signing him would have meant to the rest of the roster. This is the best path forward for this team. And you could make an argument they should have done something similar years ago, and who knows where you wind up, right? You choose this in year one, and maybe you bottom out a little sooner, or year two, you bottom out a little sooner. But realistically, they kind of tried in year two. After Ryan Fitzpatrick got hurt, they played Taylor Heineke. Their problem was Taylor Heineke was way better than they thought. What were they supposed to do? Bench a bunch of guys? No, they were 7-9 in year one. They made the playoffs. They thought they were close to good. I understand why they did the things every year except for last year. The Wentz thing again. And it wasn't even, that it was going aggressively after a quarterback because, again, they thought their defense could be pretty good. And by the way, they weren't wrong about that. The problem was the specific quarterback they acquired and the price they paid for him is indefensible, not the overall strategy. Now, the devil's in the details. Very rarely does a coach come up with an actually stupidly heinous idea, or a front office guy have such a heinous idea. It's like, hey, we got to get a quarterback. We want to be strong along the lines. Like, everyone's got the same ideas in the NFL. It comes down to how well you execute it. How good are you at scouting the players that fit in your systems and then coaching them up to actually execute the systems? And that is where I have a lot of questions about Ron Rivera. And so when people say, like, could he move into a front office role? Maybe. Maybe he's better at picking groceries than he is at cooking meals. I think that's possible for Ron Rivera. But for this particular team, the reality of where they are right now, they have a philosophy and an identity. They haven't had one of those in a while, including under him. So if you want to, again, this is not a fault or a defense of his first 3 years, and I understand being frustrated. My question is like, what are we, right now, the mistakes have already been made. How do they actually best move forward, understanding that there is no way to fire him? So for anyone who would, retort this with, I don't want him here, who's hiring him? Who's firing him? Jason Wright? Dan Snyder? Josh Harris doesn't own the team yet. Josh Harris hasn't employed anyone else underneath Josh Harris because Josh Harris can't, because Josh Harris doesn't own the team. So in December, January, your choices were stick with Ron or have Dan lead the process or Jason lead the process, which is essentially the same thing because the only guarantee is that one of them ain't going to be here in the fall, and that's Dan. And then we'll see about Jason, but Jason's not really supposed to be involved in football operations. That's not how the organization is set up. So if we accept the fact that Ron is here, and he's going to be the one going forward, at least for this year, what else did you want him to do? Having a really strong defense that they now have some guys they think create some more turnovers, and, of course, internal improvement with Jamin. We'll see if this, the other linebacker they brought in from Seattle's any good, Cody Barton. We'll see if Chase comes back better. Like, there's a lot of questions there. But there wasn't some move to be made with where they were from a cap standpoint. The big move they made was re-signing Daron Payne, which I think is a pretty damn good move. They're also going to help that defense out by running the ball and being committed to it. They brought in one of the best running back coaches in the past 2 decades of the NFL to be their offensive coordinator, who, by the way, has experience as an offensive coordinator for the last 5 years, where he's been 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls. Quarterback, Jacoby Brissett's a really good option. Like, if Howell wasn't here and they brought in Brissett, I would tell you that it's probably, like, I would actually be frustrated because they brought in a guy who's too good to be as bad as they should be this year if they want to start over. But that's not what they're doing. He's a floor underneath a pretty high ceiling in Sam Howell because of the unique talent Sam has packaged in a frame that doesn't get you drafted in the first couple of rounds of the draft almost ever. But I think the bigger question I have, with everyone having their arms up in the air and throwing an absolute hissy fit over Ron saying, we're going to roster build and we're doing a great job, is why do you keep getting mad at him for saying the same thing that he's been saying since January? I feel like there is a group of people that wants him, now that he's executed the plan pretty well, might I add, like the draft picks, like the free agent signings, Think they maybe could have done a little bit more on the offensive line. I'll give you that. Was there potential to spend a little bit more, get a little bit more at tackle? Maybe. I'm still not convinced they're done at guard. We'll see. But it's like that you're farther down the road. I was like, hey, I told you, this is where we're going. And people want him to say something different. Can you believe Ron Rivera said he's roster building in 2023? Yeah, I'm paying attention. It's the same exact thing he's been saying since January. It's the same exact thing he's been doing since January. That's the part I really don't understand. And so could you disagree with me on anything in the first 10 minutes of this segment where you dislike the plan, you have some other thing that you like? Sure, fine, I get it. There are some reasonable disagreements. But if you're like upset that he said the same thing again and getting all upset all over again for him telling the truth and being consistent, a quality that most people find admirable, and it's something that's actually good in leadership, then I don't know what to tell you. How could he? How could he not? It's what they've been doing for 6 months at this point. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Take your calls on that next, 301-230-0980. Don't forget, we're also streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980, where you can leave a comment live in the chat. Feel free to do that, and we'll read them here on the air, as well as taking your calls, 301-230-0980 on this here Hoffman Show.
DC.
No calls on the Rivera thing. Glad I got all worked up for it. Anthony, what are you doing? You're really into this song, huh?
What are you talking about?
I just saw a lot of. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I just saw a lot of.
I don't know. I mean, look, I see what you see right now. I'm just sitting here, having
Turn
fun.
the song back on, see what happens. Yep, yeah, that's what I thought. You can't help yourself. You can't help yourself. It's just not a thing that you can do. Caught again. The dancing producer, Anthony.
I got caught in 4K.
Yeah, I don't think our resolution's that good. So we want to talk all NBA teams, and we didn't really have a spot for it. But since no one's calling it on the Rivera thing, we're gonna talk about the all NBA teams because I'm pumped to talk about it because I think this is fascinating. There are real repercussions for the way this works, and for those that don't know, media votes on it. And there are like contractual obligations about, all-star teams and, all NBA and other things, but specifically all NBA affects some of the guys that are now up for contracts or have their contracts change because of where they finished. Joel Embiid, and then there's also the reality that like the guy who finished second in MVP voting is second team All-NBA, and that feels very silly. So Embiid gets the center nod, first team All-NBA. Giannis, Jason Tatum, SGA, well-deserved Oklahoma City Thunder guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then Luka Doncic gets the other guard spot. Nikola Jokic, center on the second team. Jaylen Brown gets second team. That is huge for him. Butler, Curry, Donovan Mitchell. Third team, De'Aaron Fox, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis. No Ja Morant, which is going to cost Morant $39 million in salary. Because that'd be really weird if it was $39 million in salary, Anthony. That'd be a lot of celery.
Yep.
I don't know what Ja Morant would do with that amount of a crunchy green vegetable. Did you know, by the way, here's your celery trivia of the day, Anthony. Did you know that celery technically has negative calories?
Negative calories?
It takes more effort to chew it than there are calories in it.
Wow.
It's just basically all water. There's like no calories in it.
Is that your go-to fun fact?
About celery?
Just in general, like.
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's a good one.
It is a good one because I would never know.
It is a good one. Now there's going to be a bunch of dumb people that just eat way too much celery. That is not what I said you should do. Whatever. So if Morant would have made All-NBA this year, any of the third teams, he gets a 5-year ad popped up right in the middle, covering my numbers. 5-year, $233 million contract. Instead, $194. So his extension drops dramatically. And then Jaylen Brown is eligible for the big supermax because he made it, and because he made it, whether it's in place of Ja or whatever, in general. But like Morant was on pace to make it until obviously he had the incident happen in the middle of the year. And, actions have consequences. And Ja, in that moment, cost himself $39 million. He's going to be just fine. He's still going to sign a nearly $200 million contract. He's got the massive shoe deal with Nike. They did not, they obviously put out a statement expressing concern, but they didn't cut ties or anything like that. I do think he might have cost himself some other endorsements potentially, but I think Ja's going to be just fine in the financial department. But it does show like how crazy it is that this media voting, and I'm not even saying the media did a bad job. It's just our job is to comment on things. Our job is to, name the teams, but it shouldn't be, in my opinion, impacting people's contracts other than the narrative around them. But like teams should still have the ability to be like, bleep the media narrative. Like, we think this guy's good or bad, so we're going to pay him this or that. It shouldn't be dictated in part by an award that teams have no say over. And that is true, by the way, not just when it costs players money, so to speak. And I don't even like that phrasing because, like, Ja didn't belong on the All-NBA teams this year. It's a tough list to crack. Like, if you're going to put Ja on, who are you taking off? And, like, that's kind of the point of all NBA. That's why I love it. It's why it's so much more prestigious than the than being an all-star. Like, you have to be one of the top 15 guys to get it. Of course, there's the positional thing that, Anthony, I know you're burning hot on that we'll talk about in a sec. But, like, it is that high of a bar. But you're not taking Doncic off, SGA, Donovan Mitchell, the year he had, Steph, and then De'Aaron Fox, Damian Lillard. I mean, maybe Lillard for Fox, but I don't think people realize how good of a year Lillard for Ja, but, like, I don't think people realize how good of a year Lillard had. When he was out there, he was ridiculous. And, you know, the reason he missed was injury versus the reasons that Ja missed, and I do think there's some people that factored that in. But when a guy like Jaylen Brown gets it, the Celtics' entire future changes. Like, they're kind of banking on the fact that Jaylen Brown's going to be really good but not get recognized for it. And now he can create, or he can get paid more, and the team winds up getting punished for their player being awesome because he's only eligible for that Supermax if it's an extension, right? If he re-signs in Boston. No one, and this is what the thing with Brad here, no one else could have paid Bradley Beal 35%. But for some reason, it is seen as an insult if you offer merely the same contract or even 1 or 2% more than everyone else. Hey, we know we could pay you 35. You know, everyone else can pay you 30. What if we paid you 32%? That would help us, you know, sign another player. Nope. It's insulting. How dare you? I got to get my 35%. It's crazy. And I think it's a huge problem that the NBA needs to look at where players are going to want their cash. They don't care about how much they count against the cap. Teams, I mean, owners care in terms of the cash, and sometimes that is the thing. Like, if you're going to keep a team together, you're going to do it because you think you can win a championship, and that's why you're going to be willing to pay, you know, the luxury tax like the Warriors have for the last bunch of years. But if you're not, like, it's really about the GM managing the cap or whoever manages your cap managing the cap. And I just think it's silly to punish a team for rewarding its player when they're negotiating against themselves. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so silly. And by the way, it's the kind of thing where if the Sixers win tonight and the Celtics get bounced out, I think Jaylen Brown's on the market this offseason. Because I think they look at it and go, we can't keep this team together and pay a bunch of tax when we're not consistently in the finals. Like, if we were in the finals, fine. But Anthony, I think Jaylen Brown's on the market this offseason. No, he's not getting traded here. Why would you trade Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal, who's just as expensive? The correct answer is you wouldn't. But it's going to get traded for someone. And that's where, like, I do wonder if a Damian Lillard, if he wants out of Portland, shorter deal, I believe, than Brad, and also a better basketball player, just made All-NBA again, would they be willing to pay that kind of money to a guy like Dame, who they think could elevate them? I think that's super interesting, and I think it's going to set up a wild NBA offseason, and it all happens because Jaylen Brown makes All-NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Keeping that core together was always going to be tough. It's sort of like the problem the Commanders have right now with all the young defensive players that we have. At some point, they were all going to be too expensive, and that's what we're going to run into with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So I agree. I think Jaylen Brown is going to be on the block. I'm not necessarily sure who you go out and get. Maybe you go out and get a young guy like a Jalen Green from the Houston Rockets. You trade him to a young team that needs a leader, and he can go out there and really have instant impact. I don't think he gets traded to a contender just because of, you know, the money that he's going to be owed.
Yeah, you're going to need a team that has a ton of cap space. Houston's interesting on a couple of levels. One, like the classic, hey, could he actually lead a team? Was Harden going to Houston, and that worked out. And also, Ime's there now. Yep. So, you know, former head coach in Boston, could he trade for his guy? I think that's a super interesting one. Obviously, the hard part about that, though, is unless they have a ton of cap space to take Brown into, you kind of have to have the salaries match. So that gets into really fun, nerdy math stuff. And that's why the NBA trade machine exists on ESPN.com. All right, when we get back, speaking of Brown and Tatum, are they done tonight? We'll preview that game and Nuggets Suns next here on the Hoffman Show.
This is DC's home for Maryland.
Hoffman Show, Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980. By the way, I feel like we're getting close to our first 100 followers on the Team 980's YouTube channel, which doesn't sound like a lot because it's not, if we're being honest, but we also started this thing like a couple of weeks ago. So let's see, where are we at? We got Anthony, we've had over 3,000 views. That's pretty cool.
That's good work right there, baby.
That's pretty good. We've had 88. We're at 88 subscribers, and it's the kind of thing that grows exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that we will continue to grow faster and faster. My YouTube page, by the way, bro, getting up near 2,500 followers.
Yes, sir.
There, I started that in like November.
Hey, look,
So
all
pretty pumped about
progress
that.
is good progress.
I think. I mean, that sounds. But you did say that it was progress, so that does make sense. All progress is good progress. I don't know if it was bad. I guess it wouldn't be progress, right?
Yeah, because it will be a regress.
Yeah.
Regression. But
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to school. We know stuff.
yes, sir.
And have you seen any new leaks on the Commander schedule?
No.
I have not. We're getting close. We're 30 minutes away from our coverage starting live from Old Ox Brewery with, I almost said JP Finley because I'm reading and talking at the same time. JP's reported a bunch of schedule stuff out today. But no, it'll be with Denton Day, Linnell, and my guy Logan Paulson. But if you haven't been with us throughout the show, you haven't had a chance to look, I always imagine because we're in D.C. that someone's been in some super top secret meeting all day. Then they get in their car. They're like, all right, let's catch up on the world. And we actually are telling people versus them, getting it on their phones and following on social media all day, which is actually how most of that works. But this is what we got for the Commander's schedule so far. Arizona, week 1. We don't know anything again until week 5 when they'll take on, this one was reported by JP, Chicago on Thursday Night Football. Those are both home games. So home opener is week 1. Prime time at home against Chicago. Week 7's against the Giants at home. By the way, the Giants, whose entire schedule leaked, they are on the road like 7 of the first 10 weeks of the season.
Whew.
I think that includes their bye. So it's like 7 of their first 9 games are on the road.
It's brutal, man.
That's crazy. That's bananas.
Not the life they deserve, man.
Screw them. Week 11 at the Giants. And then the Commanders get one of their 2 home games. Actually, no, that makes sense because they're on the road a ton early. So yeah, at the Giants, week 11. Then they follow that up at Dallas on Thanksgiving. Week 16 is at MetLife again for the Jets on Christmas Eve, and then they'll close at home against Dallas. So that is the currently known Commanders schedule. As for tonight in the NBA, the schedule looks like this. It starts with Sixers and Celtics. It ends with Nuggets and Suns. DeAndre Ayton out for that game. Jamal Murray questionable for Denver. We'll get to that one in a second. But Boston, Philly, Anthony, I'm gonna let you, despite your top 5 players left in the playoffs performance of basketball opinions yesterday, which, by the way, how'd that go last night? Jimmy Butler, best player left in the playoffs?
I mean, he didn't have all that good of a performance, but, it is what it is.
If you were to do that list today, would he still be number 1?
Yes, he would still be number 1.
Oh, so you're stubborn.
I'm not stubborn. I'm not stubborn. I mean, you had who did you had Steph number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the guy who's the best player left in the playoffs, number 1. That's how I decided to do my list.
I'm just saying, based off the numbers that I've been seeing this playoffs, Jimmy Butler, Devin Booker, and Jokic have had the most impressive numbers. Just saying.
I guarantee you, if I looked up Steph's and Jimmy's numbers, they'd be almost identical.
They probably would be identical. But again, I'm factoring in the Miami Heat being an 8 seed on the brink of not even making the playoff because they lost their first play-in game. They lost it.
I feel like they did that on purpose.
My point is they were almost not even going to be in the playoffs.
Sure.
They end up making the playoffs, and then you get the number 1 seed out of here. I think that's impressive.
It is impressive. The Warriors went on the road to the number 3 seed, beat them at home, and
Yeah, but they're more experienced.
my guy dropped 50.
They're young Thundercats over there in Sacramento.
Okay?
Yeah, they don't have any experience.
Okay.
This Bucks team, come on.
Okay.
Come on.
If we are picking, this is again, I'll say it again, just like I did yesterday. If we are picking teams, like we're on the playground, I'm captain, you're captain,
Yep.
and you get the first pick for the rest of the playoffs, and you pick Jimmy Butler,
It's a winner.
I'm so excited. I'm so pumped. I'm like, I got Curry. Your pick.
Yeah, like you go to have Curry then. I'm taking Jimmy.
Okay.
Yep.
Jimmy's great. By the way,
He's a winner.
Yes, Anthony, he's a winner. Steph Curry and his 4 rings are on line 2. So anyway, tonight, can the Sixers be winners? I think that they can do this. The vibes, I was funny. I was doing a radio hit in Buffalo this morning because they were doing like their season preview thing. So Commanders and Bills will play at some point this season. And then we got distracted and we're talking NBA playoffs. And, you know, the vibes in Philly are excellent. The vibes, dare I say, Anthony, are immaculate.
Ooh, immaculate.
Immaculate. In Boston, the vibes are bad. And I'm not saying that this team can't pull themselves out of it. Marcus Smart is a hell of a competitor. Al Horford's an incredible competitor and leader. Jason Tatum is a phenomenal competitor. Jaylen Brown is a phenomenal competitor. And the competitive character of this team has been tested time and time again. And they have come up big. Like, this is a team that was in the finals last year. They know how to win big games. But they also have made them, like, there's kind of an alternate version of the history. I was listening to Zach Lowe's pod I talk about all the time because it's a must listen, especially this time of year when it comes to the best basketball talk. And our guy Howard Beck was on there. And, you know, they were talking about how last year, like, the Celtics made the Eastern Conference, or won the Eastern Conference, but how many times did they get pushed to 7 games? If one shot goes down here or one call goes another way, like, there's an alternate history where this is just a long run of frustration. And there is a chance that this Celtics group is a lot more Washington Capitals, super talented, could never quite make it. Obviously, the Capitals eventually did, than they are the next great dynasty in the league. They're exceptionally good, but are they championship good? And I think that there's real questions there. And I just don't feel like the way they're playing right now is you know, good. They've been so reliant on Tatum hitting shots that he just hasn't hit all year, I guess, is the kind of more in-depth version of that. And Embiid has had their number all year and all of a sudden looks healthier. And I think the healthiest thing for Philadelphia is Harden bailed them out in games 1 and 4, right? He turns back the clock, has 40 points, and is doing stuff that he hasn't done in a long time. But all he's got to do is play like he did in game 5, right? 17, 18 points, efficient shooting from the field, only took 8 shots, 10 assists, like 7, 8 rebounds, don't turn the basketball over, set things up for Tyrese Maxey, set things up for Joel Embiid, manage the game. And I think James Harden's, at this stage in his career, is perfect for that. I really like this Philly team. And I think that they go into what will be a raucous building tonight, are mature enough to manage their energy, and I think they get it done tonight.
Ooh, I want the Celtics to win so bad. I want them to force a game 7. But
Which, by the way, there is a chance if the Suns and Celtics win tonight, and then you get Warriors and Knicks win tomorrow, 4 game 7s. It's still on the table.
Yeah, that would be insane. But the Celtics, you know, going into arguably one of the toughest cities to play in Philly, a hostile environment. We already know. Then you got Joel Embiid, MVP, James Harden, multiple 40-point games. I think it's going to be too much for the Celtics to overcome. And also, like you said, you don't know which James Harden we're going to get tonight. We don't know if he's going to be a facilitator. We don't know if he's going to turn back the clock. And I think he's ultimately going to be the X factor. I think Joel Embiid, he's going to go out there and have a monstrous game. He's going to go out there, drop 30 and grab 15, 20 rebounds. I think it's going to be dependent upon James Harden, though, and who we get or who we see out of him.
Yeah, I like the Embiid call, though, because it does feel a little like Joel's year. Like, it's just certain guys, it's felt like their years, and, like, he finally gets the MVP. And the other thing that I like about him and where he's at right now, and maybe part of this is, like, obviously he's healing, so, the injury doesn't help him. Mm-hmm. Like, his knee was jacked up. But, like, he didn't have to take quite as much of a pounding on his legs the other day. Well, just generally speaking, this is the best shape I feel like he's ever been in. And he, at the end of Game 5, looked fresh when some of the Celtics guys did not. And to be like 7'1", or 7'3", where the hell he is, 300 pounds, and to be able to be fresh just shows the physical conditioning that he has. His jumper still looks smooth. His legs were underneath him. He looked fluid. Sometimes at the end of games, he's laboring in a major way, and he just wasn't like that at the end of Game 5. And if he is truly elevated to that next level, where he understands what it takes and understands how to manage his energy to get there, that's scary for the rest of the league. And I think he's got that. And I feel like sometimes the moment is too big for players. I don't feel like Embiid's at that point. I feel like genuinely tonight, he could have one of those shining moments at home, crowd going nuts, and this could be the end of the ball. I mean, I don't say this to be dramatic. I just say this to be factual because of what we talked about in the last segment, right? Yep. With Jaylen Brown and this pending contract. This could be the end of the Boston Celtics as we know it.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Suns and Nuggets. I think this preview is going to be a lot quicker. I got the Nuggets. The Suns have to have superhero performances from Durant and Booker to win. They're without Ayton. They just don't have the depth. And I think, if Murray doesn't play, that is an obvious game changer. But the Nuggets have been so durable this year to be able to withstand stuff. I think the Nuggets close it out tonight. I don't think we get a Game 7 in either of these series.
Yeah, so I think this game is going to come down to who's in, who's out. We already know Aiden's out, but if Jamal Murray is out, I have the Suns upsetting the Nuggets tonight. I just feel as though the Nuggets have relied heavily on, Jamal Murray and Jokic's pick and roll, that two-man game that they have. And without that, it's going to be more on Jokic to, try to get those others involved.
I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, we did see MPJ. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. We saw Aaron Gordon. We saw them, the other role players step up, but that was also with Jamal Murray in the lineup. And without him, I just think it's going to be more on Jokic's back.
Yeah, I think they'd run a slightly different. Like, you'd see a lot less pick and roll. Yeah. I think you'd just see either Jokic handling the ball and running a lot of dribble handoffs and trying to get guys shots that way, and then the cuts off it, or you see him in the post a lot more. And you just see a very different kind of game. So I think it'll be interesting to watch if Murray's out. But either way, I would pick the Nuggets knowing that Ayton 100% is out. Yeah. All right, quick look at what's trending. Come back. Real things, real people said into real microphones to close out the show here on the Team 980.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
As we said, Ayton is out tonight. We are still waiting on word on Jamal Murray. Questionable is the official word for him in Game 6. That's the 10 o'clock game. Celtics and Sixers at 7:30. Both those games are on ESPN if you want to watch on the telly. Lakers, they lose last night, but they have not lost Anthony Davis for the series or for Game 6. Says he's, quote, feeling great and is listed as probable after a head injury took him out late last night after the Warriors had all but wrapped up Game 5. Of course, LA leads that series 3-2. That is also the score in the Heat-Knicks series, with the Heat up 3-2. Nats off today before hosting the Mets tomorrow. Mets lost 5-0 in Cincinnati today. Make their way to the district. First of 3 tomorrow night at 7:05 across the hall on 106.7 The Fan. And, of course, the biggest story of the day, NFL schedule release. Our coverage starts in 15 minutes from Old Ox Brewery in Virginia, out in Ashburn. Make sure you head out, hang out with Logan, hang out with Linnell, hang out with Denton at Old Ox Brewery. Get the full Commander schedule. It will be released at 8 o'clock. We already know, thanks to Kevin Sheehan, they will open with Arizona at home in Week 1. That's what's trending. I'm Craig Hoffman on the Team 980. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, time to end the show. Anthony, anything else housekeeping-wise that we got to talk about before we end? Got Yates on the show probably tomorrow because it's a Friday. So there's that. Anything else we got? Anything else that we know we're doing tomorrow? Oh, we're going to do our road trip drafts tomorrow. Anthony and I are each going to pick games that we want to go to for the Commanders. I guess we probably should pick 4 each of those.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll do a top. I'll probably do a top 4 of the rest of the league games that we want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we got that. Anything else in the housekeeping department?
No. I had to check my email real quick, see if I got an email. But
Nothing in the email.
Nope.
All right. Well, then I guess it's time to end this here radio program. Why don't you say? We do that like we do every day with real things, real people said, into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, this first one's gross, but it finally answers a question. So in Game 4 of the Warriors-Lakers series, Gary Payton, ran off the floor in the middle of a play. You'll remember Draymond Green went to make a pass to where Gary Payton was supposed to be, and no one was there. And, Payton just went to the locker room, and there was never any follow-up on it, at least that I saw. Well, we have the answer now. Apparently, Gary Payton II threw up in his own mouth.
Logan, I think last year when you...
That's not... Hopefully, it wasn't because of anything you heard on our podcast. I gotta get the updated version of Audition over here, Anthony. Can you remind me to make a note to self on that?
Yes, sir.
Because I play the wrong sound clip all the time because it's a very silly setup. Anyway, here's Gary Payton II.
Gary, you said it reminded you of school. I mean, I threw up before every AAU tournament. So is it nerves? Is it excitement? How far back does this go? You said school.
No. Game 4 was just a bad lunch. But back to school, we got beer Olympics and stuff. So you can't fall out early in there. So you got to rally. You got to get it out and come back and rally. So yeah, it just reminded me of Oregon State a little bit. Go Bees.
Thanks for explaining.
We good? You guys are great. Have a good night.
Wow. Gary Payton II. Party in Beer Olympics. Sometimes you got to rally.
Full transparency.
That is the kind of transparency we strive to get in this here sports media landscape. All right, Commanders back to work. Advice for the rookies. This ought to be good.
What is your advice to the rookies? Make sure you do your rookie duties.
Come out here. You'll be mentally and physically prepared for whatever they're going to throw at you. Workouts, rookie time. Just come out here. Get yourself ready. Get adjusted to everything. Figure out what everything at. You'll be fine.
Breathe. Just go hard. Control what you can control. That's it. You gotta compete, man. You gotta compete. What you got to say to him? Really?
Live in the moment, man.
You still a rook. What you got to say to him?
One more, man. Year 2. Live in the moment, though.
Year 2 ain't starting.
My advice to the rookies is make sure y'all get them snaps.
Yes, sir.
My advice to rookies, study your plays, man, so you can go out there and be confident, know what you're doing.
Have fun. And work hard.
Of course, the best advice comes from EB and Terry. But I could have told you that half those dudes were going to be like, make sure I get my snacks. Because that's what a lot of players think rookies are for. So there's that. LeBron talking about Steve Kerr saying the Lakers are flopping. This ought to be good. This ought to be really good.
The conversation in the last 48 hours has been, from the Warriors' standpoint, has been gamesmanship on your team and flopping. Do you feel like that affected anything in terms of the way the game was dealt with tonight on the court?
I just know that we, our coaching staff and us players, we don't work on flopping. That's not even a part of our game. Our game is to attack the paint. We don't mind physical contact. We actually like the contact, and we don't shy away from it. So we're just not a team that goes out there and looking for flopping opportunities. It's just not us. It's actually never been any team that I've played on in my 20 years where we've been a flopping team. But it is what it is. They have the right to say what they want to say, but the game is always won in between the four lines, and we got to be better on Friday, for sure.
That's a long, meandering, nothing answer from LeBron. Like, good job not making it into controversy. I did see one of my favorite tweets I've seen all week, though, Anthony. This man played with Anderson Varejao for how many seasons in Cleveland? And he says he's never been on a flopping team. I thought that was a good point by the tweeter.
Yep. A hell of a one.
Yeah, nothing you can say about that. Look, I think embellishing is different than flopping. I think there are times, like Marcus Smart will flop, and Marcus Smart is admitted to flopping. There's different, like LeBron sometimes gets hit in the face, and he's like, ow, that hurt. That's what happens. All right, that's my thought. BetMGM tonight is next.
The Kevin Sheehan Show. Now,
so what's the name was next?
What does the team have to do in 2023 for Ron Rivera to remain here in 2024?
Where am I supposed to be playing that? Is it simulcast?